Okay, before we can get into the process of submitting data for the QEP, it might be a good idea to just go over the QEP and understand what's in it. But not only understand what's in it, but understand why we do it and what's coming in the next few years. So, why do we QEP? Well, one very good reason is it is required by our accrediting agency. That's right, SACS-COC requires a QEP is submitted prior to the 10-year review. They look over that QEP, and in the end, they approve that QEP and will be monitoring our success in implementing that QEP in subsequent years. Why do they do that? Well, they actually do that to benefit us. We do a QEP because Reinhardt University wants to be an institution that continually changes the way we do things to improve. We want to investigate new pedagogies, investigate new tactics, new tools, and through that investigation of new tactics and tools, we see what works best for us, and then we adopt those operations in the future. In the end, what we're really doing is in service of our students. We want our students to come to a university that is always improving and to give them the student experience that helps them take their university coursework into their daily lives. We want to improve the educational experience for our students and improve what they learn. Specifically for our QEP, we're really interested in lifelong learning. So that's a lot of what our QEP is focused on. Now, this is the QEP timeline from the time that we started the QEP and until we'll be done with this particular QEP. So, from 2016 to 2018, we were involved in writing the QEP. If you were here at that time, you may remember a number of surveys that went out. You may remember it coming up in Faculty Senate a few times. That was the process of engaging many constituencies to choose a QEP that has buy-in throughout the university. We were a part of the writing of the QEP. Our input was solicited and considered. The QEP was approved by SACS-COC prior to our, or as part of our 10-year reaccreditation. So we got the seal of approval on our QEP, and that meant we can move forward. So our year one was 2018 to 2019. That was the last year. And in year one, we have the initial training of what is in the QEP and what we expect in terms of educational approaches and helping you understand how we're going to collect that data. We're kind of still in that initial training phase, but we're moving forward. We are now in year two, 2019-20, and we are gathering data to see how implementing this QEP is affecting certain markers. Year three, next year, this is a crucial year for the 5-year report. We are required to submit a 5-year report at the end of 5 years to SACS-COC to demonstrate that, that we took the QEP seriously and really implemented it, and that we're looking at the data as it's coming in and adjusting. Year 4, we continue our data collection, and we're drafting that 5-year report. Year 5, that 5-year report is submitted to SACS-COC, and then beyond, we take what we learned from the QEP and we adopt it as part of our normal procedures moving forward, part of our normal operations. So we are in, of course, the year 2. We're doing our data gathering to compare it to our baseline year, which was year 1. Now, this process all started with writing the QEP. So I think it's always important to acknowledge those intrepid souls who crafted this QEP. And if you're interested in the document as a whole, it is posted and you can download it from this Canvas course. It is titled, "Where in the World Are You Going?" And you see we have many current faculty members that were intimately involved, Dr. Smith, Dr. Gloka, Dr. Salter, Mullins, Brown, Dr. Summey, Joel, and Dr. Roberts, and a few that have moved on, Dr. Kropp, Ann Good is still here, but she left the committee before the draft was final. Dr. Hyatt and Dr. Teodorescu. So thank you to them for their hard work. It is really an incredible document, and it took a long time to put together. It was really quite an extensive research and proposal for what is an essentially assessment research of the university. So what is in our QEP? I've titled this presentation 2, 5, 4 parentheses 5. So, where in the world are you going is the title of our QEP. And in that document, we outline 2 objectives, 2 things that we really want to improve as we provide our students their education. Objective 1, we want to improve their global perspectives, their ability to take a world event and see it from different cultural perspectives. We also want to improve our students' professional development and get them ready for the workforce. Now, each one of these objectives has 5 student learning outcomes associated with it. And we have chosen a methodology for teaching. We've chosen a teaching philosophy or a teaching pedagogy to go about these 2 objectives and the 5 SLOs associated. So we use selected high impact practices in service of the 2 objectives and the associated SLOs. The selected impact practices are undergraduate research, internships, service learning, and study abroad. Study abroad has an asterisk because it's really a part of a larger high impact practice, but study abroad is how it's indicated in our QEP. We may be tweaking that particular high impact practice to allow for more student participation in the kinds of events that study abroad entails. Study abroad is really more about global learning, being able to take perspectives from other cultures, having encounters with other cultures so you can better understand them. So we may be expanding that. Now, the title of this presentation is 2, 5, 4 parentheses 5. The parentheses 5 is because there is a 5th-ish high impact practice that we do mention in the QEP, and that is ePortfolio. In 2016, AACNU adopted ePortfolios as the 11th high impact practice. And since it's mentioned in our QEP as a data gathering process, we will be developing ePortfolio as we continue through this QEP. Now, our QEP objectives, let's look at them as they're defined in our QEP. Remember, we have 2 objectives. Objective 1 is global perspectives. It is, RU will provide students with opportunities to take part in a variety of high-impact practices that support the growth of students' understandings of global perspectives. Okay, we talked about that a little bit. It's students having encounters with other cultures, students being able to approach different ideas from different cultural perspectives. Objective 2, professional development. Students will have the opportunity to take part in a variety of high-impact practices that support the growth of students' professional development. So those are the 2 objectives. The main things we're after are developing a student's global perspectives and developing a student in the area of professional development. So each of these objectives has 5 student learning outcomes associated with it. We're going to look at the 5 SLOs for global perspectives. SLO 1, knowledge. And again, this is for the global perspectives, objective 1. Upon completion of a study abroad trip or other relevant global pathways, HIP, high impact practice, students will demonstrate understanding of the complexity of elements important to members of another culture in relation to its history, value, politics, economy, communication styles, or practices. SLO 2 is application. Upon completion of a study abroad trip or other relevant global pathway high impact practice, students will demonstrate that they can apply knowledge from multiple perspectives to contemporary global issues. So we're applying what we've learned about other cultures to contemporary issues. SLO 3, curiosity. Upon completion of a study abroad trip or other relevant global pathway high impact practice, Students will demonstrate intellectual curiosity about another culture through self-reflection writing in response to prompt questions. Again, that's curiosity. So we want to see that students become curious about other cultures and take some steps to satisfy that curiosity. SLO 4, transfer. Upon completing a study abroad trip or other relevant global pathways, high impact practice, students will demonstrate that they can make explicit reference to experiences and apply lessons in a new and creative way. So that's transferring an experience into some kind of new perspective or new thought process or new way of approaching a problem. And then SLO 5, self-assessment. Upon completion of a study abroad trip or other relevant global pathways high impact practice, students will demonstrate that they can provide an insightful review of the personal growth resulting from this experience. So those are the 5 student learning outcomes for Objective 1. There are 5 student learning outcomes for Objective 2, professional development. And they are slightly different, so let's go over those. SLO 1, initiative. Upon completion of a high-impact practice focused on professional development, students will demonstrate the ability to identify, expand, and pursue knowledge, skills, and abilities in professional domains. SLO 2, independence. Upon completion of a high-impact practice focused on professional development, students will demonstrate the ability to extend their learning opportunities outside of the classroom. Curiosity, SLO 3. Upon completion of a high-impact practice focused on professional development, students will demonstrate that they can explore topics in depth and reflect interest in subjects. SLO 4, transfer. Upon completion of a high-impact practice focused on professional development, students will demonstrate that they can make explicit reference to experiences and apply lessons in a new and creative way. And finally, SLO 5, self-assessment. Upon completion of a high-impact practice focused on professional development, students will demonstrate that they can provide an insightful review of the personal growth resulting from this experience. So those are the 5 student learning outcomes for our 2 objectives. These are how we will measure if we are indeed accomplishing our 2 objectives. Now, we have selected 4 high-impact practices and kind of a 5th, because the 5th is one of our assessment means. Our first high-impact practice that we have adopted is undergraduate research. And this is the definition we are moving forward with. Undergraduate research is an inquiry or investigation conducted by an undergraduate that makes an original, intellectual, or creative contribution to the discipline. What we're looking at there is original contribution to the discipline, be it intellectual or creative. Then we have internships. Based on these elements, we can posit that an internship is more likely to be high impact for students when it is intentionally organized as an activity that leads to particular learning outcomes. When students apply what they have learned in courses to work experience, reflect on these experiences, and receive feedback that helps them to improve. When students build mentoring relationships with supervisors, faculty, and peers, when students are exposed to differences across people and in ways of thinking, and when students are asked to use their experiences to clarify their values, interests, and personal goals, including, in this case, their values, interests, and goals related to careers. So there's a number of points here. Number 1, internships need to be intentionally organized. We're working to make sure that the internships provide the experiences that they want that lead to particular learning outcomes. These need to be related to specific student learning outcomes in the coursework. They need to be applying what they've learned in courses and reflecting on these experiences, reflecting on how what they've learned in their courses has helped them in their internship experience. They need to receive feedback from professors, from their supervisors on how they're doing. And the students need to build mentoring relationships with those supervisors, faculties, and peers. It's best if students are exposed to different cultures as a matter of their internship. and they need to use their experiences to clarify their values, interests, and personal goals. So there's several components to internships for them to be correctly organized and conceived of so that they are indeed high impact practice. Service learning is the third high impact practice we have adopted. Service learning is a credit-bearing educational experience in which students participate in an organized service activity that meets identified community needs and reflect on the service activity in such a way as to gain further understanding of course content, a broader appreciation of the discipline, and an enhanced sense of civic responsibility. Key point there, the service needs to be connected to a course learning outcome for it to be service learning. And then finally, study abroad, student activities occurring outside the United States in which students meet learning objectives of coursework pursuant to a Reinhardt University degree. We may be revisiting this high impact practice and its definition to broaden the scope to include other global perspectives, global pathways, high impact practices as defined by the AAC and U. And then finally, our parentheses 5, e-portfolio. An electronic portfolio or e-portfolio is a purposeful collection of sample student works, demonstrations, and artifacts that showcase students' learning progression, achievement, and evidence of what students can do. These collections can include essays and papers, text-based, blog, and multimedia, recordings or of demonstrations, interviews, presentations, etc., and graphic. So this definition came from Berkeley, but it's a great definition. Now, we don't explicitly mention ePortfolio as one of our 4 targeted high-impact practices, but we do mention ePortfolios extensively in the QEP when it comes to assessing the SLOs from the other 4 high-impact practices. So it's sort of a 5th high-impact practice for our QEP. All right, time to review. Again, the title of this presentation is 2, 5, 4 parentheses 5, 2 objectives. The 2 objectives of our QEP are global perspectives and professional development. For each of those objectives, we have 5 SLOs. I can't recall them off the top of my head, but know that each objective has 5 student learning outcomes associated with it. And 4, parentheses 5, 4 high-impact practices we use in service and as a method for creating opportunities that will allow students to develop growth in the 5 student learning objectives. Those 4 high-impact practices are undergraduate research, internships, service learning, and study abroad, with the 5th assessment high-impact practice being e-portfolio. Okay, that is an overview of what is in the QEP. If you have any questions, please feel free to post to the discussion board in this Canvas course, and I'll see you soon.